I wonder if you'll be able to sense me getting hangry through this camera. Hello, internet. I really didn't think I would spend this much time in this tiny little cupboard, but there's a lot more time in this tiny little cupboard to come. Why am I in here at the minute? Well, this consumer unit, this old, I don't know, it's got to be 30 years old consumer unit, is going to be replaced with a 3-phase board for the 3-phase upgrade. But to do that, there's a whole bunch of cables which are not long enough at the minute, so they need to be tracked back and found where they can perhaps be joined up and extended. The joiner pieces, I've forgotten what it's called, I will put a picture up on the screen of what I mean. Need the floor lifted up, or a couple of boards removed from this, so that's my job for today. I'm going to create a gap in the floor for them to be able to pull their cable up and into this area. So it's amazing how much prep work there is. All of this just to put a battery on the side of my house, but I don't know why a 3-phase upgrade seems kind of fun. If you're wondering what that racket is, it's the inverter up there. Yeah, I think that inverter is going to get ripped out in this process, and we're just going to end up with the inverter outside and the main give energy inverter. That one feels a little bit dodgy. These are the ground floor cables, so we've got downstairs ring, we've got our water bonding, and we've got the cooker circuit. So if I've got to take these boards out anyway, so let's do that, see what we can find. I certainly will not be sticking my head down there, so
a few minutes later.
You're going to get a unique view from this angle. Let's see what we can see. So you can see under the floor of my house. While I have the floorboards up, I take the opportunity to drill a hole to reroute the garden office power cable. Anyway, moving on to the consumer unit change. Tackle this monstrosity. Let me show you that. I have already extended some of these cables, but we have a big distribution board to go in, which I will show you. I don't know about you, but I'm going to need somewhere comfortable to sit, so I've got my box and a cushion, and more importantly, a cup of tea to keep us going, because that power's going to be off for some time. The board's got to be replaced, cabling has had to be lengthened, there's still some more cabling to be lengthened. While I'm here, some cabling's getting changed, and we're going to need to run a giant armoured cable under the floor to replace the brand new cable that just went in that's now going to get replaced. Yeah. Right, let's get started. Now what I've discovered is that this cupboard is too small to fit you and me in, so I'm possibly going to time-lapse some of this, but you will definitely see a new board here by the end of the day. All of the solar stuff for the original give energy inverter's got to go. We've got to get this board out, and we're going to put some more Hardybacker board on, which is going to make it fireproof. And this wall that's behind here is absolutely crumbly as anything. It's not very strong, so if I can mount a solid board on it, that gives me plenty of fixings that I can screw in. I've got another problem. I've ran out of small washers, so that distribution board isn't going to go on without some small washers, and I'm going to have to go out and get a pack of washers. Who'd have thought it? This stopped again because of a pack of washers. Now that the old consumer unit is off the wall, I've got to deal with the things that I find, like this massive gaping hole. Yeah. Okay, our space is cleared here now, ready for this consumer unit, which I've prepped with a top piece of trunking, which matches up with the existing trunking that's here. Ooh, it's getting warm under here. All of this for a battery, eh? Right, how is this looking? I've got 2 holes already here with these screws here. This thing is not light to be shifting around on my own. So at the moment we have an entire meter tail that is jammed behind. Okay, now we've got a bit of twin and earth, which I don't really want to sit in there at the minute because it's going to be in my way, but I think that's the best it's going to get. That is nice and level. That's going to be its final resting place. Way too low, but I don't have a lot of choice than to go this low because of the inverters that are above. Hello, inverters. Upside down. Oh, some of what I'm doing today is considered very temporary. This opening is not okay for a distribution board consumer unit, but in a day or two I will swap it to 3-phase. I'm waiting on an isolator for that for outside, and I'm not going to be able to change this and fit that cable at the same time. It's just too much work for one man on his own. So yes, this is not up to par, but it is a temporary solution. The same goes for this gas bond. Currently is bonded to this gas pipe, which I don't know, must have been where it originally came in the house, but our gas bond is way in that direction. So that, my view is, for 2 days, it's no worse than how it originally was when this house was built. I realise this video is very weird. It's a mix of me talking about how I've got something which is very generic, the 3-phase, with a bit of hands-on, which is more niche, is it? You let me know in the comments. Is me lying on my back here more niche? Let's take a moment to pause from installing that distribution board. I mean, there's nothing like just delaying while the power's off, hey? So in the video where we lifted this battery down through the roof, I asked a couple of questions. I asked you guys to let me know what I should do about this roof in the comments and to share your thoughts. And Alan80 Supra, this is a shout out for you because you spotted my blaring obvious mistake. How could I have missed it? I didn't install spacers or washers between the Unistrut and the battery so I could torque it down. That was a stupid mistake. You spotted it, and because of your comment, I have fixed it. And now we have 5 washers in all of these holes. Some of those will be coming out, a couple of those for the future battery cover, which we'll just have to wait to see. The other thing though you mentioned was installing bifacial panels up there. For now, I've covered it with ply, so it's got a temporary cover with some roofing underlay over the top, which I had from a spare project down the garden for the solar pergola. If you haven't seen that video, then you got to watch it. It's the most watched video on the channel so far. So it's surprisingly, for as janky as it is, watertight, but I wanted to see what it would be like with it quite dark under here. Now we are getting light from the sides, but believe me, it is pretty dark down here. So I've been doing my research. Bifacial panels let much light through. It's north facing. Whether it's worth putting bifacials, cheap damaged panels, then it might make it worthwhile. A lot of time in my evenings doing research. Leave down to you Alan. So thank you very much for making me spend so much time in working whether bifacial panels are going to be what goes here. If we can get some... Anyway, let's get back to installing this distribution board, hey? And I need to go to my handy little diagram for that. Should we start with something easy? We've got 2 3-phase circuits, one here, one here. I purposely left these at the bottom because they're going to be high power and it needs the longest cable run, and some of these cables are on the short side. So that's the boiler. We can certainly do boiler. Boiler goes on 14. So this one here, we can do that. So I think I extended the upstairs ring a little too much, but at least it's not too short and I've only got to do this twice. Anyway, bye. Every time I cut a piece, I'm thinking to myself, I wish I'd brought a little bin. Might have to break out the gas stove in a minute because busting for a cup of tea. In fact, it's, I don't know, it's something like 2 o'clock. And I've not eaten lunch, and I don't really do breakfast, so I don't know why I didn't start that first instead of this. I wonder if you'll be able to sense me getting hangry in a little bit through this camera. Well, it's well and truly dark. I've been watching an episode of Carwell, and now it's time to turn on this consumer unit. I've got live tests to do and make sure that everything is as it is. All of my breakers are off at the minute. I'll be back. There we are. All the test results good. So we are ready to move on to the next stage, but that is for another day. Currently, this giant consumer unit has a link to make it single phase. And the next job is to lift the giant hoo-hoo, you'll see now, lift that giant cable and run it under the floors back to the outside cabinet. So that is a big job and it's an awkward heavy cable, so I'm going to put that off for another day. I'm not quite ready for the 3-phase charger and the inverter yet, so that's right. There'll be a 3-phase charger for electric vehicles. That is all part of the big plan with how we're going to use this battery. There's a few things that I don't like about this fuse box distribution board, which I've gone for, and quite simply, my biggest bugbear is that all the screws for the external parts are not captive nuts, so I'm going to end up losing those. They do come with spares, but the fact that the product comes with spares shows that the design is broken. But this and everything that's populated it has cost me under £400, and a Hager or a Schneider board £700-800. So the other thing I'm not so keen on is that it is a little bit limited in what you can fill and how you can fill it, but we're getting surge protection for very cheap money compared to how much a Schneider surge protection device is. So overall, I'm very happy for a domestic house. I think Schneider spending £800, that's right, would be overboard. Anyway, looks fairly neat here. I will finish screwing in my bolts, or whatever they are. Getting tired, it's been a long day. Hello. Let's get this giant cable in this cupboard, fed to that consumer unit, under that floor, to that point outside. This isn't going to be easy. Right. This is where everybody tells me, you're doing it wrong, there's a better way. I think I'm going to send that end through the floor. Electrician beaten by tape, there's the headline. I've got to do what I don't want to do, and that is poke my head down the tiny hole over there. These aren't so bad, they're quite open, but I've seen spiders down there. At this point, I'm trying to snake that giant cable through that gap you can see in front of you. If you've not worked with a 25mm 5-core before, there's the first bit in from over by the distribution board, and now I've got to go that way to that hatch and outside. My cable goes all the way back around this corner and into there, ready for that distribution board. Now, I clearly didn't realise that my mic wasn't working at this point, and I'm not quite sure what I was saying. I was probably waffling about how difficult it was to get the large steel wired armoured cable through. 25mm cores and 5 of them, so awkward. And now I'm probably mentioning how everything around your house should be done in socks and sandals, because if you need to take your shoes off, you can, and then if you need them on to go outside, you can. Trying to convert you all to do that because it's absolutely amazing. But you do have to wear the steels when you're doing the outside battery lifting stuff. If you look on those videos, I am wearing steel boots. I'm serious about being safe, but it's also funny to wear socks and sandals. Anyway, I'm probably also mentioning that the board at the back, how that was really useful, and without that I wouldn't have been able to get that cable through. There's a hole just the other side of that board, and we'll go and have a look outside at where that cable comes through. With the old cable removed, we could then terminate at both ends of this cable. Now, all of this is very much getting out of DIY, but it's possible for a competent person to do this and then just get a buildings officer to come and look over it afterwards, or perhaps you carry out the labour work under the supervision of an electrician. And why the heck have I gone to all this effort? Well, I wanted my 3-phase power for the big battery project, and while I'm at it, I may as well put an EV charger in, and we will probably one day in the future have a heat pump as well. So we needed an upgrade. That consumer unit was getting old, and I'm sure I'm not the only person with a really old consumer unit. Some of the circuits in our house were not protected by RCDs, which meant if we got a shock, we were going to get the full whack. Now, most people, when they think of electrics, just think, well, it works, so it's fine. But with my electrical training, I was well aware that this is not up to the latest standards, and those standards are there for a reason. So yeah, this now means that I can get on with applying to the DNO for my inverter. Until next time, Battery Man out.